And the president, look, if we had 5% growth and unemployment was dropping like a rock. Maybe you could have a so-called Mexican standoff, and you could say, it will be you, not me. The voters will hold responsible for raising taxes on middle-class people if they all go down next year. That is not the circumstance we face. The United States has suffered a severe financial collapse. These things take longer to get over than normal recessions. We must first make sure we keep getting over it. We don't want to slip back down as Japan did. And in order to make it happen over the long run, that's why the question I was just asked is so good. Is we have to go beyond direct investments, whether they're stimulus projects or tax cuts, to private growth. But to get there, we have to achieve a higher level of growth that triggers a confidence. So I personally believe this is a good deal and the best he could have gotten under the circumstances. I just disagree. I understand why people have a right to disagree with him. But I disagree. Yes, sir. Question, Mr. President, you've made a number of very effective calls for the healthcare plan last year. Have you been asked to make any calls to Democratic members on the tax deal? And, secondly, there are a lot of comparisons being made between the '94 election and the 2010 election. Do you think those are analogous? Are they similar situations? Former President Clinton. It's like all these things, all of you will be under enormous pressure to develop a storyline. And there are some parallels, and some that are different. And you know, I'll let you do that. I'm out of politics now, except to say that I care about my country and I want to get this economy going again. And I believe that it is necessary for these parties to work together. And I think, for example, the storyline is how well we work with the Republicans and all that. But we played political kabuki for a year, had 2 government shutdowns. We can't. Afford that now. The only reason we could do that is if the deficit was already coming. Down in a time when interest rates were the problem, and the economy was coming out. People just didn't feel it yet in '94. We can't afford that. We have got to pull together. And both sides are going to have to eat some things they don't like. Because we cannot afford to have the kind of impasse that we had last time over a long period of time. We don't want to slip back into a recession. We got to keep this thing going and accelerate its pace. I think this is the best available option. Mark. Question, any calls? Question, Mr. President. Former President Clinton, oh, I'm sorry, George, I have not. But in fairness, as soon as the election was over, I took my foundation trip to Asia. Then I came back. I just got back from the West Coast, doing my annual trip out there. There are people that support the work I do and my foundation. I flew overnight to get here today. And I have. To leave again tonight. If I were asked to, I would be happy to talk to anyone. But I have not been asked. But, in fairness, the president didn't have a chance to. He asked me to come down today, because he knew I was going to Hillary and. I were appearing before the Brookings Sabin Forum on the Middle East tonight. Yes, Mark. Question, Mr. President, I get the feeling that you're happier to be here commenting and giving advice than governing. Former President Clinton, oh, I had quite a good time governing. I am happy to be here, I suppose. When the bullets that are fired are unlikely to hit me, unless they're just ricocheting. No, I'm glad to be here because I think the president made a good decision and because I want my country to do well. And after the '94 election, I said the American people. In their infinite wisdom, have put us both in the same boat. So we're going to either row or sink. And I want us to row. Question, can you give us a Haiti update? Former President Clinton, what? Question, can you give us a Haiti update? I know you were there. Former President Clinton, yes. I had a long talk with the Prime Minister today. And he, first of all, has done I think a remarkable job of being a loyal Prime Minister. But not being involved in the political imbroglio that's going on, except to try to keep calm. There was a decision made by the Electoral Council to review the vote in its entirety. And to ask some outside observers to come in who are not only credible but knowledgeable. And they will announce exactly how they propose to do that today. Was a pretty calm day. And they expect the weekend to be pretty calm. We are going to have our commission meeting next week. We may move it to the Dominican Republic. But I think the best thing that we can do for the people of Haiti is to prove that Haitians on the commission. And the donors, are still committed to the long-term reconstruction process, whoever gets elected president. The best thing they can do is everyone understands they had to. Carry out this election under enormously difficult circumstances. Even getting the ID cards to everybody, as you know, proved difficult, because they were in those tented areas. But what I can say is it was calmer today. It appears they are going to try to have a recount procedure. Which they hope will acquire more support from across the political spectrum. And, meanwhile, we want the Commission to keep working. The World Bank just released about $70 billion of the $90 billion in projects we approved 4 months ago. So that will go in. We'll be hiring more people immediately on those projects. And we're going to approve a lot more projects on the 14th. And that's my focus now. Yes. Question, Mr. President, I have to ask, do you think your appearance here today will help? Sway votes where they're needed the most right now, among House Democrats? Former President Clinton, I have no idea. Question, the reason I ask you that is because a lot of them are sort of antsy. And I know you never used the term back in your first term. But they're antsy about the precedent of triangulation. They're still smarting over that. And your appearance here today. Might not necessarily push them in the direction that the president wants them to be pushed. Former President Clinton, that's right, it may not. But I would like to I told President Obama, and I'll tell you. You ought to go back and read a lecture that Franklin Roosevelt gave in 1926 before he was the vice presidential nominee. Before he came down with polio, to his old alma mater Inaudible. In which he discussed the dilemma of the progressive movement in American politics. I have an enormous amount of respect for the Democrats in the House. And I've already told you I regret that so many of them lost. I think. Some of our best people lost. And I get where they're coming from. I can only tell you that my economic analysis is that given all the alternatives that I can imagine actually becoming law, this is the best economic result for America. and I think it is enormous relief for America to think that both parties might vote for something. Anything that they could both agree on. And there is no way you can have a compromise without having something in the bill that you don't like. So I don't know if I can influence anybody. Heck, I couldn't, I'd go some places and the people I campaigned for won. In some places, the people I campaigned for lost. I don't know. All I can tell you is what I think. Question, considering your credibility on the deficit. What do you think about concerns about the short-term deficit and the long-term deficit, and where our country is going? Former President Clinton, I'm happy to address that because I don't think that I don't. Think I did a good enough job in this election season, obviously, and I'm not sure we did. The difference between now and when I became president. When we immediately went after the deficit, is quite simple. When I became president. It was after 12 years in which the accumulative debt of the country had risen from $1 to $4 trillion. It was the first period in American history when we had ever run structural deficits of any size. And so we were having to pay too much for money. It was costing us a lot to borrow money in the public sector. Taking, I think it was 14 cents of every dollar on the debt at the time. And it was crowding out the opportunity of the private sector to borrow money. And raising their cost. And that sparked the recession that we had in the early 90s.